I remember when I first got into lapidary, I was trying to watch as many videos as I could, learn as much as I could, so I thought this might help some of you guys out. So I'm going to just pick this camera up, make this video one take. We're going to get right into this here. Okay. So starting out with the Ray Tech, we have the lamp here. We have the speed controller, which is going to turn the machine on and allow you to choose a variation of speeds. Now, this isn't the original drip tank. This has been replaced. This is just kind of a rigged up drip tank. Here I have a master lap on here. It threads on. You have the ability to raise and lower the splash pan. So when you're cutting the girdle, which is the perimeter of the stone, you need to bring the splash pan down to allow this handpiece to reach the disc here. Now, here's the handpiece. The way it works is you have your index gear here, which can be changed out to different tooth indexes. So this is a 96 gear. And the way this works, we have the ability to lift this little tab here and twist, and that's how we actually go about changing the index. On the side we have a knob here. This is going to allow for changing the height, and we have something called the cheater on this opposing side, which actually allows you to do a small amount of an index gear change. So if you're doing a polishing and one part of the facet isn't polishing properly on that certain index, you can tweak it a hair left or right to actually try and hit that part of the facet. Here we have the ability to change the height of these little pads, and that really is everything that there is to the handpiece here. We have this is the final thing I can show you. You unthread this on the back, and this is how you actually go about removing the dop stick, which is the, I believe, aluminum piece of metal that holds your gemstone in place. So that is the handpiece. Now, the way the platform works, this actually has the ability, kind of like a DJ, so you can have your handpiece. You can move it, swivel it. Underneath here, we have the ability to raise and lower the platform in micro adjustments. So that will allow you to actually change the height of the stone you're cutting. If you need to cut deeper, you would lower the platform or raise it higher. If you're changing the angle that's going to be bumping into the lap, you would change the angle maybe to a lower degree, like let's say 20 degrees, shoot the gemstone closer to the lap, raise it higher. So that's the Ray Techsaw. It comes with the lamp, comes with the handpiece. It's hardwood with, I'm not sure the top, it seems pretty heavy for what it is, so potentially stainless steel. Don't quote me on that one. And again, overall, very high quality, lasts a long time. I'd highly recommend it if you're going to get into lapidary and you're considering using the handpiece machines. This is going to be a higher quality than, let's say, an overshores or overseas machine that you would get imported in. So moving on to a masked machine, we have the facetron. Now this is a little bit of an older unit, but the thing with the facetron is it's extremely high quality and the age is completely irrelevant as long as you make sure that you keep up with maintaining the machine, making sure you're cleaning it properly. If I lift the mast here, you see it actually allows itself to drop. You don't ever want to slam something. They added that feature in. Now the index gear on this one, the way it actually works, you have this tab here and then you're able to spin and actually go about changing your index. You have your cheater here, which allows again for that micro adjustment to the left and the right. It's pretty cool. They have a little needle right here. If I push down, you see the needle rising. So that can tell you, by the way, I'm pushing down on the mast. So that can show you how much force you're using to get a facet, and you can try and make it repeatable by knowing exactly how much force you had pushed down on each row of facets. We have this ability to turn this, and this will actually raise and lower the mast. I'm actually just going to lock it in there. It's difficult to do with one hand. And then up top here we have the ability for the fine adjust, which if we're just trying to make micro adjustments up and down, you just actually twist that on the top. Now this one has the ability to completely spin around 360. You can just take a look at that. This is all high quality machined metal, made in America like I stated earlier. And this will last a lifetime. This is an older machine and it runs extremely well for the age of it. Everything is perfectly balanced still when the lap spins. It's all spinning true and proper. The mast still works great. And the way that the mast actually slides, it's not my favorite design personally, because you see these rings that have worn in here. That's from twisting this, which loosens it. You have the ability to slide forward and back and spin that counterclockwise and it'll lock it back into place. We have the ability to go clockwise and counterclockwise, and again, it's a very variable speed machine. You can choose how many RPMs you want. This is unthreaded because I was actually cleaning it earlier. That goes in here, and that gives you the ability to hold this pin locked up by threading that in, and then you can spin this wheel. Right now it's locked into a teeth, into a groove. You could just spin that on your own. So that's how that works there. And the last thing on here is how you adjust your angle. I do really like this one. It's pretty cool. It reminds me of an old school alarm clock. And the angle is going to be where this mast head is facing. So you can see it moving up or down there. So that is set at 65 and it allows the 1/10 of a degree. Overall, extremely impressive machine. This is for a hobbyist as well as someone that's an expert cutter. Actually the same with the Ray Techsaw as well. It doesn't matter what level of skill. If you're a beginner, if you're just trying to be a hobbyist, if you're trying to go completely professional, both these machines are going to get you there. And out of the two of them, in case you're curious, which one do I maybe prefer? I prefer the facetron, and the reason being I do prefer a mast machine. And that's my own personal preference. There's absolutely nothing wrong. And there's actually a lot of cutters that are way more skilled than I am that prefer the handpiece machines. So it just depends on maybe the way you were taught or just kind of your own preferences on the way each one functions. But for me, I always like the mast machines, and that's what I learned on, and that's what I've just grown accustomed to. So this is my favorite machine. This is my daily driver, so to speak. I have access to a few different machines, and this is the one that I decide to use. Now, right now, I actually have a piece of Zultanite in there, which is a rare gemstone from Turkey. So, how this works? Well, we have our water tank, which I guess I didn't really explain on this one. It's pretty straightforward. You just lift the tab up, right? It drips water out. This one actually, if you open it up, it's almost like opening up a faucet in your tap. It's pretty aggressive. Now, this water tank I prefer of all the water tanks. It's just got a simple little tab up here. There's a little cutout in the lid. That helps to not create a vacuum. I thought that was clever engineering, so there's no vacuum formed when the water's dripping and it's trying to breathe. You just twist that and let the water out. I just actually dripped some water out there. Okay. Another fun thing about this, it has the ability to move around, right? Pretty straightforward. When I'm cutting the girdle of a gem, which is the perimeter, I have the water dripping on the exterior of the lap, and I will move it into the center when I'm sweeping across the lap, cutting the main facets on the pavilion, for example. So here is the mast. Now this is the thing that makes this machine so sophisticated and, in my opinion, my favorite machine. Just being careful with that Zool tonight. That's for a customer. I'm recutting right now. So the way this works, this is a digital dial, so it can go to the 100th of a degree. And the fun part with the digital dial, let's say I'm trying to cut down to 44 degrees. As I'm cutting the stone, it'll count down. Let's say the cut starts at 44.3 degrees. You'll watch the numbers count down as the mast is lowering down to the set angle, and then you'll see the readout across the screen. You know you've hit your angle. It's just a really nice thing comparatively to the Ray Tech, for example. On the Ray Tech, I actually, when I'm using this, I get down low and I look underneath at that little foot and I watch it till it comes down and makes contact with the platform. Now you might ask, well, wouldn't you know when it's done? Well, even when you think a facet's done, there's usually parts of the facet that will just skip across the lap. So a lot of it can be listening, and it's nice to use a bunch of different cues, but if you can do a combination of listening as well as visibly seeing a readout, that is, in my opinion, the best way. And then, of course, you actually want to be staring at your stone. That's extremely important to see where your meet points are and to be cutting a little and checking a lot. So we have the cheater here. This, again, is the device that allows for micro adjustments for twisting left and right. We have the locking ability to lock the mast up. Now, looking back at the facetron does not have that ability, because if we were to have a gemstone, this model, I don't want to say that facetrons are not able to do this, this specific model, when you lift it up, if my finger was the gem, you see the gem would hit against. There's nothing to stop it. So with the facetron, I always leave it down, and if I'm cutting and I want to step away, you just leave it off to the side. Where with the Ultratech, I have the ability to clip it up, and it's actually locked in, and if I do a little bit of force, it'll pop out. You can hear it, and that's it clicking into position. Now, this is a digital dial, like I said. It's not on right now. I should have grabbed the cord, but I didn't. It's a lot to set these up out here, so the ability to turn that on. Now, this is your height adjuster, so this is how you actually adjust this up and down. And as long as you keep this mast extremely well kept, not extremely well kept, but you got to maintain it. This is so smooth, and it really is a beautiful piece of machinery. Now, when you try the difference between the two, this is a very smart design. All you need to do is, when you're ready to lock it in, you just stop turning and it's locked into position. And so just for ease of use for the user, I mean, what more could you ask for? I want the height there, that's it. It's that quick, it's that easy. And it really is a highly precise piece of equipment. You have the ability to slide it forward by knocking this down here and sliding it forward. Now, the ability to have this tab will actually keep your platform of the faceting machine in better condition. The mast on the facetron, you have to spin this, which grinds against the metal to loosen it. So that's how you loosen, that's how you tighten. You don't actually have to do that with the faceting machine. With the Ultratech, you remove that lever, slide forward and back. So definitely prefer that. Now, this has the ability for the speed controller, like the other machines, and forward and backwards as well. So nothing different about that. And that is my favorite faceting machine. I believe I covered all the bases on that. All right, so finally, we have a relatively new age piece of technology here, and this is the Fantasy machine. Now, the fun part about the fantasy machine is this is also made by Ultratech. So the mast is removed from the V5, which is the version of Ultratech that is, and it goes into the base here. Now, we have the ability to move this base forward and backwards. We have our, actually, you know what? I'll put the mast on this machine and I'll show you guys how this one works. So the mast unclips and it's relatively fast. That's all it takes. You lift it off, you set it down. Now you slide it into place, and you want to set this machine up. There's a few things you have to do, but that's just to show you quickly. The water dripper comes off, and this lamp is actually a lamp that also works on the, that lamp also works on the Ultratech V5. Okay, so now we're ready to go here. So you have your, it's a little bit challenging here, guys. I gotta raise this mast up. So you have your mast on here. Now there's a way that you have to actually line everything up, but essentially you would get the gemstone lined up so that it's in the center of this cutting disc. And there's different attachments you can add. There is cutting discs, there's concave attachments, and overall there's a lot of different things that you can do with this machine. It's kind of difficult to summarize if you're unfamiliar with how it works, but I'm going to try and give you a quick rundown. So we have a motor here. This motor alternates this table forward and backwards. We have a secondary motor here. This motor actually spins, that's going to do the cutting. So you have a concave piece, or you have a slitting tool. And on here, we actually have the ability to change the angle of this entire platform. So I can push this tab in and loosen this knob here. Okay, it's going to be super challenging to do this with the water dripper on while I have this camera in my hand. But that's locked on tight, and I actually have the ability to change the angle of this platform. Now I have a fine adjuster here, and it's actually hooked up to a dial, you can see. So this is actually going to move the table in micro adjustments on the x-axis. And then on the y-axis, as I showed earlier, we have this ability to move this platform by spinning this. So we have counterclockwise, clockwise, on and off. We can choose to just run this motor, or we can choose to run the table forward and backwards. Now this motor as well, so this, before I explain the motor, what I was going to explain, this right here, the mast basically bumps in against that, and that's how you know that the mast is going to be sitting at the same spot every time, this little arm. And then it has micro adjustments on this arm as well. Again, I'm just giving a crash course here, guys. There's a lot to this, and I could definitely just make a video on its own. So this right here unthreads. You can see I can move this, and then I also have the ability to move this up or down, and this threads in forward and back to slide that forward and backwards. So again, just you get everything set up how you like. Now this motor unmounts, and the idea is that we can face it this way now. And when the motor is actually faced in this position, you could still use the slitting tool, but you would typically put in a mandrel, which is just a cylindrical piece of metal, and that's what alternates forward and backwards with the mandrel, and that's what's going to give you concave cuts. So traditionally, the flat faceting machines do your standard gem that you would see, and with the concave cuts, we have the ability to do the fantasy gem designs, which are pretty revolutionary, and it's similar to gemstone carving, but on a much more precise level. So that is a quick rundown of the fantasy machine. from Ultratech. We have our Ultratech machine and our fantasy machine, our facetron, sorry. And I was just thinking, one thing I wanted to touch on quickly too is the splash pan design of the Ultratech is my favorite. So you can see we can move the splash pan out of the way, and the mast arm, when it's really low on a 90 degree for the girdle, is able to cut. With the facetron, you can see it doesn't have anything to catch it there. So the 90 degree girdle is like this. You want to drop the mast down low, and you basically just hold that with your finger or push the mast against it. And with this one, the entire pan is lifted or dropped. So it's a little messy to cut a girdle when you're lifting your entire pan down, but that is what's necessary to cut the girdle adequately with the Ray Tech. And there's all three of the flat fastening machines. And there is our fantasy. Now, if you guys are curious, I am hosting workshops where you have access to these machines. And I, depending on when you're seeing this video, have more machines. And I have more spots. I'm going to be hosting these in London, Ontario. That is in Canada. And it's an introduction to gem cutting where I'm going to have access to 4 students at a time. And the way it works is there is 2 Ray Techsaws, and there is a facetron and an Ultratech. And the way it works is the first day 2 students use a mast machine, 2 students use a handpiece machine, and then the second day when you're in your pavilions and you guys are all cutting your crowns, we swap, and the 2 guys that cut their pavilion on the handpiece machines get to cut the crown on the mast machines. And this just allows you guys to experience both worlds with the handpiece faceting machine as well as the mast piece. And I want you guys to see both machines and make a decision for yourself on what you prefer, because again, there is no right answer with faceting. It is just your preference, and in my opinion, I prefer the mast, but that's just me. So if that's something you're interested in, you can contact me, or you can go to my website, colefine.glass, and I have the gem cutting workshop page that outlines all the details. So all American machines, you're going to be using high quality equipment, and it's a 2-day interactive course where you get to cut and polish your own gemstone and bring it home. If you guys got any questions about any of these machines, feel free to leave a question in the comments, and also let me know what's your favorite faceting machine. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you liked that, and I will see you guys on another episode.